at that Farbrengen. Obviously, it was going to be a Farbrengen for the first yard side of the previous Rebbe. And generally, the Rebbe would Farbrengen the day after, meaning the night after the day. If there was, Yud Shvat would begin on Wednesday night, Thursday. The Rebbe would Farbrengen Thursday night. So on most special days. So the Rebbe Farbrengen Yud Aleph Shvat Tafshin Yud Aleph. Okay, and that was the Rebbe's first Farbrengen. What did the Rebbe do? The Maimer, he said, is called Bosi leGani, and the Rebbe explained the first chapter of the Maimer we're going to learn. The next year, Tafshin Yud Beis, there was another Farbrengen on the outside side of the Friediger Rebbe, and the Rebbe explained the second chapter. For the next 20 years, the Rebbe explained each subsequent chapter. Went 1 through 20, from Tafshin Yud Aleph to Tafshin Lamed, right? To 5711 to 5730. 5731, the Rebbe started again from Aleph and went all the way to Memches and stopped. Because the Rebbe stopped saying Maimer and Memches. Okay, so now, why is that important? It's important just to know. I mean, it's an important thing. That means the Maimer we're going to learn is a Maimer that the Rebbe Chazer. We're not going to learn all 20 verses. We're going to learn the first 5. But the Rebbe said over this Maimer more than 40 times. Right? There's 2 volumes. I mean, what I have in front of me is Sefer Marim Tafshin Yud Aleph of the Friediger Rebbe. Right? These are the Maimarim that they printed. The Tafshin Yud, the Rebbe told them to print, and then after Yud Shvat, they kept printing Maimarim for the Chassidim to learn. There's a Bosi leGani Chelik Aleph and Bosi leGani Chelik Beis. Our Rebbe's Maimarim, right? They'll be the first 20 chapters of the previous Rebbe's Maimer, and then all the Maimarim of our Rebbe from Tafshin Yud Aleph to Tafshin Lamed, that's volume Aleph, and then Tafshin Lamed Aleph to Tafshin Memches, that's volume Beis. Now you will hear Chassidim, you will hear the Shluchim talking about this. Some of the Bochum who've been around a little longer. You'll be hearing them talking about this year's Maimer. What do they mean? This year's Maimer, or this year's Maimarim, really is what they're going to be talking about. Well, since there was a 20-year cycle, since there was a cycle of Maimarim, so that cycle continues, right? We learn the Maimarim relative to the continuation of the cycle. For instance, from Tafshin Yud Aleph to Tafshin Lamed was one cycle. Lamed Aleph to Nun was another cycle. Nun Aleph, 5751 to 5770 was another cycle. 5771 to 5790, we're not there yet, will be another cycle, which means we're in the 15th year of the 4th cycle. Right? People kept learning the Maimarim that were relevant to that part of the cycle. So this year, what will everybody be learning? They'll be learning the 15th chapter of the previous Rebbe's Maimer, Mem Tes Vav, which is in here. They will then be learning 2 Maimarim of our Rebbe, Tafshin Chaf Hei, the Maimer the Rebbe said in Tafshin Chaf Hei, which is the first time that we hit 15 years, and the Rebbe explained the 15th chapter of the previous Rebbe, and then Tafshin Mem Hei, where the Rebbe did it again. So those are the 2 Maimarim that people will be learning this year, and they'll come at some point.
Different.
What?
They're
different, very different. The Maimarim and the Mems are very different than the Maimarim and the Chafs, right? It's just, the Rebbe will deal with a different point in the Maimer. Right? Usually the early ones are harder. Usually what comes out at some point before Yud Shvat is one of these little pamphlets that looks like this, only it's folded up, those things that you get, but they look like that. Right, and it'll be Maimari Bosi leGani Tafshin Pei Hey, and there'll be Maimer Tafshin Chavei, first it'll be Bosi leGani, the original Bosi leGani, and then Ois Tes Vav, the chapter 15, and then the 2 Maimarim to discuss that. And you get a little thing like this. I'm sure they might even be selling them already. They cost very cheap, or even if they cost anything, they might even be selling them by now in Heichel Menachem. Okay, Mashpim are starting to teach Chafei now. You can find shirim here and there. People who are starting to teach Chafei. Right? So that's what's going on relative to the Maimer Bosi leGani.
So is the cycle reset on the 9th of Shvat or
10th of Shvat?
10th of Shvat. That's when it.
Yeah, everybody learns each year preparing for Yud Shvat. Everybody learns the Maimer of that year, and what the year that's coming up. Right? Just now you'll find that people, you can find online classes in Tafshin Chaf Hei. right? Or Tafshin Mem Hey.
Okay.
Right? They start, people, the Asher Farkish is someone I learned with online. So he's starting his Kafei, right? He's teaching in Argentina. So he's starting to teach in the yeshiva. Kafei. They're very hard in my mind. Now, our Rebbe, on Yud Shvat, Tafshin Yud, after a year of beseeching the Rebbe to become Rebbe, the Chassidim continued. And that morning, a bunch of Chassidim went into the Rebbe and gave the Rebbe what's called a Ksav Hiskashrus. They gave the Rebbe a letter that says that you're our Rebbe and we're your Chassidim. When the Rebbe saw what it was, he threw it off the desk. Right? That was the morning. At the Verbringen, at the beginning of the Verbringen, on Yud Shvat Tafshin Yud, someone asked the Rebbe to be Rebbe, and the Rebbe told him to stop being a nar, stop being, silly, youthful. Right? And then at some point in the Verbringen, the Rebbe said they should start singing the Maimonigen, and they sang the Maimonigen. And everybody got excited. Now, you think that you're talking about thousands of people in the room in 770 is crammed. A few hundred people. It was very small, right? Because how many people were around in 1950? Right? 51. Okay. So the Lubavitch was very small. I have a friend who grew up in Crown Heights. And anybody who knew Crown Heights in the old days, so Solomon's insurance office was on Kingston Avenue. He was a notary public. You could get your stuff notarized there, and they sold insurance there. So Laser Solomon grew up in Crown Heights. He then moved when everybody but Lubavitch moved out. Crown Heights was a very well-known Jewish neighborhood. There were all sorts of people in Crown Heights. The 60s, so the nature, what do they call it, the character of the neighborhood started to change, and most people moved out. The Rebbe told everybody to stay. So most people moved to Flatbush or to Borough Park, and the Rebbe told the Lubavitchers to stay, so Lubavitch stayed and everybody else left. He left then, but he still had a store. He remembers as a kid going to greet the Frierdiker Rebbe at the docks. He wasn't a Lubavitcher. But his father, they lived in Crown Heights, and his father, no one knew that Frierdiker Rebbe was coming to Crown Heights in those days. But his father said, a big tzaddik is coming out of Europe, and we're going to go greet him at the docks. And so we went to the docks to see the Frierdiker Rebbe get off the boat. And why did I bring up laser? He remembers his father getting phone calls that they needed a tent for the previous Rebbe's minyan. There wasn't a minyan. So his father would go and help make the minyan by the Frierdiker Rebbe. He remembers when he was a little boy, the Rebbe used to go every afternoon to go visit his mother, who lived at 1414 President Street. So he was once standing on the street with his mother, and his mother was talking to Mrs. Schneerson, and the Rebbe came by. He was on his way to visit his mother, but his mother wasn't home yet. She was on her way home, and she ran into Mrs. Solomon on the street. So he says he was a little boy. He remembers distinctly that the Rebbe said hello to his mother, and then the Rebbe said hello, and then the Rebbe tipped his hat to Mrs. Solomon. He said hello, Mrs. Solomon, and probably said something to the little boy. And then the Rebbitzin and the Rebbe walked to the Rebbitzins' apartment. The Rebbe used to go every single day to visit his mother in the afternoon. Every day in the afternoon. Okay. I smell like coffee. It's spilled all over this. Okay, let's see the mimer. Very, very special mimer, beautiful mimer. The first ois will take us longer than all the rest. In the first ois is the ideas. It's called the Haskalah that we have to learn, and explains very, very clearly the difference between Seviv and Mamale. Infinite light and the light that is responsible for the existence of the four worlds. Shabbos Parshas Ber Yud Shvat Tavshin Yud Yortzeit Kveid Imez Keinosei. That means his great grandmother. I'm sorry, his grandmother. Harabonis at Tzadkanis Maris Rivka Nishmasa Eiden Schusa Yagen Aleinu. Rivka is the Rebbe Rasha's wife. Right? Fourth Rebbe's wife. Rebbe Rashab's mother. Bosi leGani achosi kala. And we're going to see at the beginning of the mimer 3 drushes that are exactly the same style of drush. Exactly the same. Bosi leGani achoisi kala. I've come to my garden. I should put these out there. I've come to my garden, my sister, my bride. The Isa b'Medrash Rabbah b'Mkema. It said it is in Medrash Rabbah in its place. Now it's unusual for the Rebbeim to put that there, meaning why? I mean, it's in Medrash Rabbah, and usually the Rebbeim do not give Mar Makemis. They don't give, they don't tell you exactly where you can find whatever it is that they're quoting. Whether or not this is why it's there, I don't know. But the Chassidim like to say this, they like to tell this part of the story that if you look in Medrash Rabbah Bimkeme, now what does it mean Bimkeme? It means in Shir Shirim Rabbah. Medrash Rabbah is a major medrash, Tanaitic medrash. Okay? Most of Rashi in Bereshis, Rashi quotes Bereshis Rabbah. That's the medrash Rashi uses in Bereshis more than any other. In Shmeis, which we just started, Rashi is going to quote the Mechilta more than anything else. In Vayikra, Rashi quotes the Sifra more than anything else. In the Midbar, Rashi quotes Medrash Tanhuma more than anything else. And in Devarim, Rashi quotes everything, but mostly Sifri, but lots of Gemaras, etc. Okay. Now, where will you find medrash? You'll find medrash in Gemara. You'll find medrash in Sfarim that are printed that are compilations of medrashim. The biggest compilation of medrash is Medrash Rabbah, the great medrash. There's a Medrash Rabbah on all 5 books of the Torah, but there's also a Medrash Rabbah on all 5 Megillos: Megillas Esther, Megillas Rus, right? Shir Shirim, Eicha, Koheles. Those are the 5. Okay, so we're learning that pasuk is from Shir Shirim. So there's a Medrash Shir Shirim Rabbah. You find them in the back of Medrash Rabbah, depending on the time of the year, right? Bereshis, Shmeis, Vayikra, Bamidbar, Devarim are read through, of course, obviously different times of the year. So Shir Shirim is read on Pesach, so that'll be around Vayikra. That'll be in the back of the second one. Also, Megillas Esther is generally read at the end of at the end of Sefer Shmei, so that'll be in the end of the first volume of Bereshis of Medrash Rabbah. Right? You'll find them.
Who is Drosh? Drosh was?
Medrash Rabbah. That's what we're talking about.
So Drosh, no, what does it mean, like Drosh?
A medrash is a way of learning the Torah. A medrash is an explanation of the Torah. Torah is about that.
And it's also called Drosh.
It is, but that I didn't mention that word once. Interestingly enough, I just said medrash. I did not say the word drosh.
You said we're going to see the 3 droshim.
Okay. So 3 different ways of learning, 3 different psukim that are going to be learned exactly the same way, right? Same exegesis. Does that work? That word. That's an English word that doesn't help, right? So there you go. You say that to anyway, they don't know what you're talking about. Drush, learning. Lidrosh means to learn, to explain. Right? It might be allegorical, but very well might not be. Right? And these aren't in any way, shape, or form. Okay? So it happened. Why does it say? I don't know why it says Mimkema, but it is interesting. If you look over there and you understand the historical background of when this mimer was given to us to learn. So if you look there at the author of the statement we're about to read is Rabbi Menachem, his son-in-law. That's what it says. Amar Rabbi Menachem Chasnei. So the Chassidim like to say that this was a hint of the Frierdiker Rebbe about his son-in-law who had the same name. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea, but it's a picante little piece of information. True, not true, I don't know. Whatever. These are B'Medrash Rabbah. Now, this drasha here, same as drush. This drasha is going to explain pshat in the pasuk, but it's a specific type of drasha, and it's going to happen. The same thing is going to happen 3 times, twice from Chazal and once from the Rebbe himself. Legan ein ksiv kan. It's not written legan. I came to a garden. Ela leGani, to my garden. Legnuni. Legnuni is Aramaic for a resting place. meaning a play on the words Gani, I came to my resting place. L'makam shayikare betchila, the place that was my essential place originally. The Iker Shechina, the essence of the divine presence, B'tachtonim haiso, was in the lower realms. Va'al yedei, keep reading, then we're going to come back to all of this. Va'al yedei chet eitzadas, and through the activities of the tree of knowledge, Nistalka Hashchina, the Shechina was elevated, it went out, mi'aretz, from the earth, l'rakia, to the heavens. Va'al yedei chet Kayin ve'enosh, and through the wrongdoing of Kayin, who killed his brother, right, that's rather famous, his brother Hevel. Ve'enosh, what did Enosh do? Baruch Hashem, no one knows what Enosh did. You know, if I were a famous Avaryan, I would also hope no one knew what I did. Right? Yes, he was the first Oved of Zara. He was the first idol worshiper. He has that. He has a little badge on him. It says "My first idol worship." It's a machlekes, the Rambam and the Ramban, whether his idol worship was evil or just an intellectual mistake. Right? Meaning, Kadosh Baruch Hu gives honor to certain things, and so it's reasonable for us to give honor to those things, like the sun and the moon and the stars, etc., etc. They play a rather central role in things. Right? Okay. But Enosh was the first Oved of Zara. Nistalka Shechina Merakia Aleph Lebeis V'Gimel. The Shechina disappeared. It was elevated from the first level of heaven to the second and the third. Va'achar kach, and afterwards B'dor Hamabu, in the generation of the flood. Noach, 10th generation of the world. Nistalka Merakia Gimel L'Daled. It disappeared from Gimel to Dalet, and I'll just tell you the next three, because there's three more levels, and then we'll go back to the beginning of the Maimer to understand what we just said. Right? The Dor HaMabul, Dor HaFloga is not listed here. The people of the Tower of Babel, you probably want to write it down so you'll actually remember it, right? I know that's a ridiculous thing to actually expect that I should remember what I learned, but it's a good idea. I would imagine I'm just going to be nasty, right? That very few people here went to college without a pen or a pencil in their hand, right? In a class. That's just my guess, right? Okay. Torah is a little more important. Dora Floga, the generation of the Tower of Babel. Sdoim, right? Sodom and Gomorrah. Gomorrah gets a bad rap from the way they translate that, you know? Sdom. Sodom, it's a horrible, terrible city that was destroyed in the times of Avram Avinu and Lot, right? And the Mitzrim, the Egyptians, but not the Egyptians that we're going to start learning about now, the Egyptians of Avram's time, that generation of Egyptians, which are also complete low lives, right? How do you know they were horrible, terrible, disgusting people?
Kidnapped his wife.
Right, exactly. I mean, Avram Avinu, when he went there, had to put his wife in a box that they shouldn't see her, right? I mean, there's very few neighborhoods in the world that are that horrible. Right, okay, so that was Egypt in those days. Okay, so those are the generations. Chet Eitzadas, Kayin, Enosh, they're here. Mabul, Dor HaFloga, the generation of the Tower of Babel, just soon after the flood. Zdoim and the Mitzrim. Now they're both. Shem was around for a long time, but they were destroyed in the generation of Avram Avinu. So we get to the generation of Avram Avinu with the last two. Right? Okay, so the first 20 generations of the world. Avram Avinu is the 20th generation of the world. Then there's going to be 7 generations that bring godliness back into the world, starting with Avram Avinu, of course. Okay, that we're going to see in a minute. But first now, back to the beginning of the Maimer, because we just learned that Shechina left the world. What does that mean, if Shechina left the world?
Conceal itself more?
That what?
More concealment?
Okay, true. What else does it mean?
No way to know Hashem?
Okay, now you're describing what the ramifications of that are. I'm asking also, what does that teach us? If we'd say that Shechina left the world, what do we also learn from that?
Can come back.
Okay, it can come back, but also it was there in the first place, right? That it was there in the first place, right? Which is really what the Rebbe wants to teach us, right? Let's go back to the beginning of the Maimer. Bosi, leGani, achoisi kala. I've come to my garden, my sister, my bride. Be'isa b'medrash rabbah. Interesting enough, this world is referred to as a garden, not a desert, not a horrible, disgusting place, but a garden, a place of beauty. Right? Place where things can grow. Legan ein ksiv. It doesn't say I came to a garden. Ela legani, to my garden. Legnuni, to my resting place. Lemakim shahaya ikari betchila, to my original place, the place that was my original place at first. The ikar shchina b'tachtonim haisa, that the essence of divine presence, whatever that means, and interesting enough, our Rebbe's first mimer, Tafshin Yud Aleph, which we discussed at the beginning of Shir, that mimer, so the first third of the mimer discusses what does Ikar Shechina mean, and he discusses it based on the Alter Rebbe, the Mitla Rebbe, the Tzemach Tzedek, the Rebbe Marash, and the Rebbe Shab, the first 5 Rebbeim. 3 times in the Rebbe's mimer, he goes through all of the Rebbeim, right, from beginning to end. The 3rd time he includes his father-in-law. He doesn't include his father-in-law the first 2 times because he's learning a mimer of his father-in-law. He's explaining the mimer of his father-in-law, right? Whereas the 3rd time he goes through all of the Rebbeim, he tells a story of their Avos Yisrael, and he tells a story of the Avos Yisrael of all 6 Rebbeim, right? Okay, so this seemingly telling us that this is all a continuation of everything that's been, meaning nothing new is happening here, I assume. Okay, so Shechina b'tachtonim, Ikar Shechina b'tachtonim, whatever that means. You want to know what that means? Learn Bosi leGani Tafshin Yud, which is at the end of this book. If you want an English translation, it's here. This is a book we put back in the library, and you can copy it if it costs you money. So it'll cost you money. I don't know what the laws are around here about copying things. Okay, so how does the Rebbe learn that? How does the Medrash learn that from the pasuk? The Medrash just told us that from this pasuk we learn that the essence of divine presence was in the lower realms. How does it learn that from the pasuk?
Came to my original place.
It doesn't say that in the pasuk. But what you're saying is true.
My garden.
Says my garden. Okay, so why does that mean that the Ikar Shechina was in the lower realms?
Gan Eden. You see?
That we didn't see those words. What does the Medrash itself say? If we want to answer the question I asked, probably the best thing to do is to look at the words of the Medrash, and the Medrash teaches us how it learns this. So how does it learn it? The Medrash points out something. What does it point out?
It's not written in a garden.
Look at the words. What does the Medrash point out? Points out a particular point that evidently the Medrash thinks is very important. Something it says and something it doesn't say.
My garden.
As opposed to
A garden.
a
garden.
A garden, right? Yeah, that's what it said. That's what the Medrash says. I mean, all we have to do is read the words of the Medrash. It's always best to read the words, and then I'm going to figure out what it is I'm talking about. The Medrash says, leGani ein ksiv kan. It doesn't say I came to a garden. Ela leGani, to my garden. Legnuni, to my resting place. Okay, play on the words, but that could be a play on the word gan also, right? It's not a play on the word gani, it's a play on the word gan. L'makam shayikari betchila, to the place that was my original place. Okay, so how are we learning that from that? That yud, how does that yud teach us that? And what's the new understanding of the pasuk based on the Medrash? Whole new understanding. It doesn't say I came to a garden, it says I came to my garden. Therefore, what do we learn from that?
It was the original place.
Beautiful. It's the original place. So therefore, I was there originally. Therefore, what must I have done?
When you went out.
Left. I must have left. That's the next thing the Rebbe. That's why I wanted you to see that part, right? The Rebbe then explains how he left. Okay, so then what does this verse now mean?
That he was once there.
Yeah, okay.
Something close to.
Okay, that's true, but this verse is not talking about leaving. What's this verse talking about? Coming. But what's the new understanding? What's the new? How would you translate this verse better now?
I will come, or.
I'm coming back to my garden. Why does the Yud teach me that? Because if it's my garden, where should I be? In it. So if I'm coming to it, what must that mean?
You're not there.
That I left. Oh, because if it's my garden, I should be there. If it's a garden, and I'm coming to it, then what could that very well be? I'm coming to it. First time, I've never been here. I'm coming to a garden. I'm coming to a city. What city? Never been there. I don't know. Pick a city. Okay. But it doesn't, I'm coming to my city. So what does that mean, I'm coming to my city? I'm coming back to my city. For some whatever reason I left. Why I left, I don't know. That might be relevant, it might be irrelevant, but I left. Therefore I'm coming back. I'm coming back home. Now you can say I'm coming home, I get that, but I'm just to emphasize what the new pshat in the pasuk is the pshat in the pasuk is I'm coming back to my garden. And what is it that teaches me that that's pshat in the pasuk? How does we learn that? What letter? Yud. And how does the Yud teach me that?
It's his garden.
It's my garden. So where should I be? I should be there. Why aren't I there? I don't understand. It's your garden. That's where you should be, isn't it? Oh, I was, but now I'm not. Well, now I am. I'm coming back. Oh, so then the Rebbe explains, as we know that what? Shechina was essentially in this world in the time of Gan Eden, and then that powerful revelation that existed in this world ended, and Shechina was elevated further and further from this world, making this world a place that is more and more difficult to be sensitive to the godliness in it. Does that mean there's no godliness in this world? Of course not. That's impossible. It couldn't exist if there's no godliness in it, because the source of its existence is the Eibishter. Right? So every chelkik, every atom is a little piece of Elokus. Okay, that being said, it's not visible. It's not something revealed. It's hard to be sensitive to it. The more godliness is revealed, the easier it is to be sensitive to godliness in that place. That's what it means. It doesn't mean you're going to start seeing lights bouncing off the wall. That's a silly understanding of what it means that God's revealed. The revelation of God means I'm in a place where it's easier to be sensitive to Elokus. Eretz Yisrael is a place of greater revelation of Elokus than Chutz La'aretz. Most people find it easier to be sensitive to godliness here than in other places. There are places in Chutz La'aretz that are very, very powerful places of revelation. Shuls, study halls. Okay, so a person walks into a shul, he feels a little different than he does walking into a baseball stadium. Right? He might not check his phone as quickly in the shul as he does in the baseball stadium. Okay, why? The baseball stadium is not particularly, our doctor in November is not here, so I can say this without any fear of retribution. Right? That it might not be a place of great godly revelation. Okay, whereas a shul hopefully is. Right?
Isn't it the concept of once there's a million of people that the Shekhinah is upon us?
Also, right? That does happen even in a baseball stadium, but it's not particularly evident. Unless you're sitting in the section of the Jews from Brooklyn, from Borough Park, who are rooting for whoever they're rooting for, eating their knishes. Right, for the first time I went to Yankee Stadium, I was a young lad, and some black guy comes up with those things that they put on, they have that thing, the thing in front of them with the foods. Knishes, hot knishes, get your knishes. I said, I can't be. They're selling knishes in Yankee Stadium. Wow. Must be a lot of Jews in this town. Selling knishes. That's what he was selling. Someone was selling hot dogs, someone was selling beer, and he was selling knishes. They also weren't kosher, but they were at least knishes. Okay. So Elokus, when we talk about revelation of Elokus, doesn't mean there's more or less God in any place, because the Eibishter, leis asar panui minei, there is no place devoid of godliness, because the source of the existence of everything that is the Eibishter. But it's all a matter of how easy it is to be sensitive to that existence. So that's called revelation. There are certain places where it's impossible not to be sensitive to it. Upper worlds, metaphysical worlds where God is revealed in a very, very powerful way. Right? Har Sinai, impossible not to be very powerfully affected by the presence of God. That's why it says that we accepted the Torah under duress. How could you possibly say no? That acceptance of the Torah wasn't complete, because it wasn't really fair, so to speak, to the other side of reality. Right? Because we couldn't possibly say no. When did we accept the Torah more fully? Purim. Time of unbelievable darkness, and yet we still were completely and totally connected to the Torah. That shows just how real our connection is. To be frum on Yom Kippur, big deal. Right? You're frum on Yom Kippur. Okay, good for you. Yeah, I spent all day in shul. Good for you. Good. I didn't look at my phone once. Good for you. Good job. That's not particularly impressive. right? If you didn't do that, that's unimpressive. Whereas on a regular Tuesday, to be that sensitive to Elokus is impressive, because it's not so easy. Yom Kippur, relatively easy. Relatively easy. Again, not easy, but relatively easy. Why? Because there's a revelation of the Eibishter on that day that's more powerful than the revelation on a regular Tuesday. That's called revelation. There really is. There's a revelation in places in time, and there's a revelation in places in space. Most people feel some stir in their soul when they go to the Rashbi, they go to Maris Machpelah, they go to the Kaisel, they go to the holy places in Eretz Yisrael. They feel a little connection to something, right? Remember a birthright group once. So I used to teach the birthright groups that came through. So I would always talk to the shluchim before. Who do you think is most interested and might be a reasonable candidate to come to yeshiva? So I'd make sure to talk to that guy during the class, ask him a question, something. Those guys, whoever the shaliach said. So he said, "Oh, there's one guy here who's on fire." I said, "One shaliach said, why? What happened?" I remember exactly where we were staying. I remember the old buildings. Came out of the dining hall with the stairs down. We were talking at the top of those stairs, and then he said, "Oh, there's one guy's on fire." I said, "Well, I don't know. He had a religious experience in Sfas." I said, "What happened?" "Wow, we thought we lost him." I said, "What happened?" So he said, "We went to the Ariz mikveh in Sfas, and he went in, and he didn't come up." And he's down there, and he's not coming up. And we're going, like he's got to breathe. At some point, he has to breathe. Is he still alive? But we're looking. Come on, no, Jeff, whatever his name was. So at some point, he comes up, and he has this look on his face. So when they got dressed, they left, and the shliach, I said, what happened? He said, "Rabbi, I don't know. I was in the mikveh. I felt like all of the land of Israel was giving me a hug, and I just didn't want to leave." Well, that's a pretty powerful experience. Okay, he was like immersed in Eretz Yisrael, and the Eretz Yisrael was giving him a hug. Okay, yeah, Rizal's mikveh is a pretty holy place. Right? When the Bochum in Sfas up the hill, 7 minutes away, 5 minutes away walk. It's all uphill. It's not an easy walk. Is the dorm of the Lubavitch Yeshiva in Sfas, the Yeshiva G'dayla, the dorm. So the Bochum built themselves a mikveh in the dorm. So people always just say, I understand you have. Obviously in the winter you're not going to go down to the Arizal, but you have the Arizal down the block. Why'd you build a mikveh? So their answer was, when they were building it, they were Bochum, right? They said, wow. If the Arizal knew that we had a mikveh up here, he would have come to our mikveh. There's a mikveh down there. Yeah. It was a little funky in the old days, right? It was literally the Bochum built it. And then the Hanholah said, what, kol hakavod, you built it, and they fixed it all up. The Hanholah brought in pros and fixed it, and the Charsina and everything. They just poured cement and filled it up. So, and then they put in they had showers in their dorm rooms. So they used to come down in the bathrooms and jump in the mikveh and go back up to their dorm rooms to get dressed. But they put in showers, they made it, and now it's a real mikveh. But it was completely organic. The Bochum took shovels and built the mikveh. They started. Right? They wanted a mikveh in their building. So, okay. So Shechina was here and left. Okay. Meaning the world became a place where it's hard to be sensitive to Elokus. So now, the fifth line, the Rebbe is going to bring another medrash. And this medrash is going to teach us what we just learned. Now, what was the last thing we just learned? I'm going to read the words. I'm not translating. We did already. Nistalka shchina mi'artz l'rakia, v'al chet kayin ve'enosh, nistalka shchina mi'rakia aleph l'beis v'gimel, second level, third level, v'achakach v'dor mabul, and then the dor mabul, nistalka mi'rakia gimel l'daled, and then I filled in the three levels, hey, vav, zayin. Okay, so what did we just learn about? The last thing we said.
What drove
driving Shechina out of the world. B'diuk. K'di'isa b'medrash rabbah. So what's this medrash going to teach us? Like it is in the medrash rabbah. I guess it's going to teach us about Shechina leaving the world, right? I guess that's what it's going to teach us about. Okay, amazing medrash. Al pasuk, the famous pasuk. V'yishma eskel havaya lokim mishalech began. He heard the voice of Havaya Elokim. Now I'm going to translate it loosely. Mishalech began. Usually it's translated walking in the garden. Right? Amar Rabbi Abba. Exactly the same style of Medrash. Amar Rabbi Abba. Mahalach ein ksiv kan. It does not say mahalach, which means walking. Ella mit halech. Mishalech. What's mit halech? What form?
Being walked. Being walked.
Being walked, reflexive, exactly. Walking yourself, actually, right? It's reflexive. Lehit labesh means I dressed myself, right? Lilbosh means I'm wearing. Lahalbish means I'm dressing someone else. I'm causing them to wear, right? That's he feel. And this is hit pa'el. I'm sorry for the grammar. This cup of coffee is taking a tremendous amount of energy. It's just a cup of coffee. This should be taking more energy. Right? Hit pa'el. Reflexive. So now, it's very hard to walk reflexively. You walk yourself, or you put a leash on yourself and you take yourself for a walk down the... How do you walk yourself? You just walk. Oh. But interesting enough, you notice exactly the same style of Medrash. It doesn't say this, it says this. Exactly the same. Right? Oh. So it doesn't say God's walking in the garden. It says God is reflexively walking in the garden, whatever that means. So the Medrash obviously is going to explain that. Kafitz va'azil. That word kafitz, what might it mean if you know some modern Hebrew? Jump. Right. Likfotz means to jump in modern Hebrew. This is Aramaic, but it's the same word. Kafitz va'azil. Jumping and going. Kafitz va'azil. Jumping and going. Okay. Now, this shouldn't be so hard to understand. I don't know how we're going to have to figure out how it's shaykh to the reflexive part of it. Okay. But the pshat and the pasuk shouldn't be so hard to understand based on the context in which the Rebbe is bringing this medrash to us. What did we just learn in our Maimon? God leaving the world. That's what we just learned about, right? Okay, and the Rebbe then brings this medrash. What does this medrash teach us? Evidently. Before I see the medrash, what's the medrash going to teach me?
Just like choosing to walk.
But no, that's not what I'm going to think before I see the medrash, because I wouldn't even know what the medrash is talking about. Forget it. Before I even see the pasuk, what do I know that the next piece of information that the Rebbe quotes is going to teach me about? God leaving the world. Okay, so now put that into this medrash. That's what this medrash is talking about. So what is it saying? Somehow, I might not know how yet, but what is it? What information am I learning from this pasuk?
You returned.
No, absolutely not. Exactly the opposite.
That he's living on his own.
And when he's going to read the words, what does it mean leaving on his own? What does that mean? I don't know what you're talking about. Honestly, I hate to be annoying, but I don't know what you're talking about. Just all I have to do is read the words that it says. What does it say?
He's walking by himself.
No.
It's coming back and
What did the medrash? Not coming back at all? That's not what we're talking about. We're talking in the context of God leaving, not coming back, not in the least, right? What words does the medrash add to the pasuk that the medrash thinks are very important? 2 words. What are those 2 words? No. Kafitz va'azil. And what do those 2 words mean? We translated them. Jumping and going. So, what does this pasuk mean? What's God doing? Jumping and going. So there was that. What does that mean? In the context of our Myra, it shouldn't be so hard to understand that in all fairness. He's jumping and going where?
Out.
Out! You're fair. Jumping out of what? The garden, so to speak. God is jumping out of the garden. He's leaving the garden. Wow. What an unbelievable pshat. What did you think the words meant? And you probably thought this for your whole life because this is how it's always translated. They heard God walking in the garden. Is that what it means? According to this medrash? No, what did they hear? Exactly the opposite. They heard God leaving the garden. And they freaked out. That's why they got afraid, according to this medrash. Wow. What did they realize they had just done? Just pushed godliness out of the world. Wow. So it says they're afraid. Well, of course they're afraid. Now, why do we say that? Why is the Medrash learn that? What word is bothering the Medrash? Mitalech, right? It should say Malek. God, they heard it. This is how everybody translated. I'll bet that that's how they translate. I mean, it's hard to, in all fairness, it's hard to translate it here without saying that, right? What does it say? Yeah, okay, so we put walking about in the garden in italics because it's not really that, okay. Because you would translate it, you'd hear God walking in the garden. He's walking around in the garden, but that's not pshat at all, according to this medrash. It's an amazing medrash, right? What did they hear? God leaving the garden, and they realized they had just completely changed reality by virtue of what they had just done. Wow, what a pshat in the pasuk. Now, and how do we see it? Because of this word mitalech. So now mitalech, reflexive walking. So this is sort of bizarre. But I guess the image is, since we always use this image as, so to speak, God above and we're below, even though interesting enough that wasn't the case then, but okay, right? That, so to speak, the Eibishter is walking back to himself, like he's going back up to his source. He's walking back to himself. Mitalik, reflexive somehow, like that, right? I think that's the pshat in the reflexive aspect of it. That he's going back up to his source, okay? So to speak. Again, this is the image we have. It's not true, right? God's everywhere. But the image is the Eibishter is above and godly light descends down. And we use that image all the time, right? Okay. So the light, the godliness is descending down. Now it's going back up to its source, up to itself. Kofitz va'ozil, jumping and going. Wow. Unbelievable. Va'achar kach, Baruch Hashem, now we're going to get some good news. After this, that we pushed godliness out of the world through the first 20 generations of the world's history, 7 major events did that over those 20 generations. Va'achar kach amdu shiva tzadikim, then it stood 7 tzadikim. Ve'ridu as a shechina lamata, and they brought the shechina down below. Baruch Hashem. Now, obviously, we know who the first 3 are. Avram Zocha v'herides Ashchina mirakia Zayin Levav. Avram started the process, which of course is the most difficult part of the process. What do they call it? The inertia, right? Trying to overcome the inertia of reality. Avram Zocha v'herides Ashchina mirakia Vav leZayin, from 7 to 6. Ve'yitzchak mivav lehei, and Yitzchak from 6 to 5. Ad, until ki Moshe, shehu hashvi, that he's the 7th. V'kol hashvin chavivin, and all 7ths are dear. We'll come back to that in a second. Haridu lamata v'aretz, brought it down into the aretz. Right? Let's read one more line just to understand what that means. What does he mean he brought it down to the aretz? Most people think that means he brought the Torah, but that's not what it means. The Iker Gilu Elokus, where was the essential revelation of godliness? Moshe built the Mishkan. Moshe built the Mishkan in the desert, a place of ongoing godly revelation in this world. Okay, beautiful, amazing. Okay, 7 generations. So we have to go through the 7 generations. Avram, Yitzchak, the next one's easy. Yaakov, the next one's not so easy.
Levi?
Okay, why do you say Levi?
Because Moshe.
Ah, Yefeh, good job. Levi. Then after Levi, Kahas, then Amram, then Moshe. Well done. Right? Avram, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Levi, father, son. Levi, Kahas, Levi's son. Amram, Kahas' son. Moshe, Amram's son. 7 generations. 7 generations from Avram Avinu to Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu was the 26th generation of the world's history. Yud Kei Vav Kei, the revelation of Yud Kei Vav Kei in that generation. Right? So Moshe brought it down into the world in a complete way. They undid, so to speak, everything that was done. Now, obviously, they did not undo it completely, because if they undid it completely, we would be living B'Yemei Mashiach already in a completely revealed way. And we're not. So obviously, there's more to do. But the Mishkan was the beginning of that, even though the Mishkan obviously was limited to the extent that it was limited in space and time. But even when it was there, it was limited in space, because outside of the Mikdash there wasn't such a revelation of Elokos. Right? Inside there was, but outside there wasn't. In Mesa Mashiach, that revelation will be everywhere. Okay. One thing we have to explain: the brackets, Kol Hashvin Chavivin, all 7ths are dear. Moshe Rabbeinu is the 7th generation. Our Rebbe in his first mimer spends a great deal of time explaining that parenthetical statement, because we're the seventh generation from the Alter Rebbe, and the Rebbe explains it doesn't say all things that are dear are seven, it says all sevenths are dear, meaning the dearness is a function of being the seventh. The fact that it's the seventh makes it dear. And the Rebbe explains that that's our generation. And therefore, our dearness is not because of our Veda, it's not because we've chosen to be dear, it's not because we want to be a special generation, it just happens to be that that's who we are, and therefore our Aveda is what our Aveda is as the seventh generation, which is all about bringing godliness down into the world. And therefore our Aveda is very, very world-centered. Right? We're not dealing with religious transcendence, we're dealing with bringing godliness into the world in the most real and tangible way, which is what the seventh generation is all about. And the Rebbe says twice, this is not a function of our avodah, meaning we reached this level because we worked so hard. It's not a function of our choice that we chose this. And then the Rebbe says the second time even more emphatically, and it might not even be a function of our ratzah, what we want to do. Having not accepted upon himself to be Rebbe for a full year, right? Meaning, it's not the Rebbe what the Rebbe's would like to do. So like Torah all day. Would like to do. Right? Okay, can't do that. So no, but it'd be a nice thing to do. The Iker Gilu Elokus Haya b'Beis Hamikdash. We have 2 minutes. Let's see if we can get down to the end of the first part of the Maimer. It's relative. Well, there's one drasha that's a little tricky, right? But okay. The Iker Gila Elokus Haya b'Beis Hamikdash. T'chsiv v'asu li mikdash v'shechanti b'seicham. The pasuk in Parshas Truma, which is the pasuk that teaches us to build a mishkan and a mikdash. They should make for me a mikdash, and I will dwell amongst them. Now, this third drasha, which is exactly the same as the other two, but this is the Frierdiker Rebbe saying it, not Chazal. B'seichai le'nemar. It doesn't say in it. They should build for me a mikdash and I will dwell in it. God says, build me a house and I'll live in it. That's not what it says. B'seichai le'nemar. Ela b'seicham. It says they should build for me a mikdash and I will dwell amongst them. B'seich kol echad ve'echad. In each and every one. This whole mimer is all about how to develop a spiritual consciousness so that godliness dwells in you, that you are conscious of godliness in your life. That's what this whole mimer is about. That avodah, va'asu li mikdash, do those, we'll figure out what the Rebbe is going to teach us, what those things are. Do those things that are necessary to bring about v'shechanti b'seichem, that I will dwell in you, in each and every one of you. And how do you and I bring about a revelation of godliness in Eilam Hazeh? By bringing about a revelation of godliness in our own conscious reality, because we're part of Eilam Hazeh. If you and I are conscious of Elokus, there's a revelation of Elokus in the world, because you and I are in the world and we're part of the world. Just like the ground is part of the world and the trees are part of the world, we're also part of the world. So seeing Elokus in trees, okay, good, but if you and I see Elokus in our own conscious reality and are sensitive to Elokus in our own conscious reality, that doesn't mean sensitive to my own spiritual achievements. It means sensitive to godliness. So then we bring about a revelation of the Eibishter and Eilam Hazeh. That's what this mimer is all about, how to achieve that. In each and every one. Now the Rebbe says another drasha. That tzaddikim will inherit the land, v'yishkanu, they will dwell la'ad, forever, aleha, on it. Now those last three words are not going to, the only word that's going to stay the same is aleha, on it. The other two words are going to be explained in a completely different, the first word in a slightly different way, the second word in a very different way. Simple pshat, what do those words mean? V'yishkanu, they will dwell, like shchuna is a neighborhood, shchina is the indwelling of godliness in the world. They will dwell, la'ad, forever, aleh, on it. That's simple pshat. Okay, now what does it mean? Let's see. The tzaddikim Yeshu Aretz, the tzaddikim. Now this is all coming to teach us that a person can develop a godly consciousness. That's why the Rebbe brought this, right? That there should be a revelation in each and every one. V'zeu, and this is what this verse means. So that there should be a godly consciousness in every single one. Tzaddikim Yeshu Aretz v'yishkenu ladoled. The tzaddikim Yeshu Aretz, tzaddikim inherit the land. What does that mean? Shu Gan Eden. They have an experience of Gan Eden. What's Gan Eden? A place of revelation, a place of godly revelation. Mipnei ma. Why? How do they merit this revelation? Lefi shehein, because v'yishkenu, they will dwell. So the Rebbe learns that as mashkinim, they cause to dwell. Hainu mamshichim, they draw down. What do they draw down? Ad. Okay, again, v'yishkenu la'ad, a land shat means they will dwell forever on it. In the drush, it's going to mean v'yashkinu, they cause to dwell, that level called ad, which is a very lofty level of godly reality, which we'll see in a minute, on it. They bring down a very lofty level of godliness into the world. So tzaddikim, since they draw godliness into the world, are privy to godly revelation. So godliness is part of their conscious reality. How they draw it down, we don't know yet. We'll see. The tzaddikim Yeshuat Shu Gan Eden. Mipnei ma, why? Lefi shem mashkinim, they cause to dwell. Hainu mamshichim, that means to draw down. What? Bechinas, the quality of shechein ad marim v'kadosh. Shechein ad marim v'kadosh shema. Oh, you've heard those words before. Every Shabbos. Okay. Shechein ad marim v'kadosh. Simple pshat, what does it mean? He dwells until lofty and transcendent places. Right? That's simple pshat. Okay, now, there's a simpler pshat. He dwells on that level called ad, which is marim v'kadosh, which is lofty and transcendent. Wow. Shechein ad, marim v'kadosh. That level called ad, which is marim v'kadosh, which is lofty and transcendent, they draw that down. Shir begilui lamata. That should be revealed below. That's what tzaddikim do. They bring that level of ad down below. Now the word ad also means ornaments, edyam. It also means eternal, beyond time. Okay, but ad, simple pshat, ad is until. Okay. Li'olam vo'ed. Right? It's eternal. But here the word ad refers to a very lofty level of godly reality, where he is shochein, where he dwells. And what do the tzaddikim do? Draw godliness from that very lofty level down into the world. Shiyeh begilui lamata, that it should be revealed below. One more line and we'll stop. V'zeu, and this is the end of the headline in the Maimon. V'zeu, and this is pshat Bosi leGani. And this is pshat in the pasuk Bosi leGani, leGanuni, to my resting place. Lamakim shayikara betchila, there was the place of his essential place originally. The ikar shechina b'tachtonim, I said that the essence of the shechina was in the lower realms. The most powerful revelation of godliness was in this world and will be in this world when we finish the job. Okay. Then now we'll see V'hin Yinu, and this is like this. The Rebbe's going to explain all this. That's the basic headline. That's what we have to understand. That half page. That's what the whole Maimer is going to explain to us. Okay? Say that. See you tomorrow.
Not that. Repeat the last line. Repeat the last line.
Which bit? This is Bosi leGani. This is Pshat in the pasuk Bosi leGani.
Where it says the resting place.
That the essence of the divine presence was in the lower realms, which is what we said in the third line. End of second line, beginning of third line. Right? The essence of the divine presence is down here. Is there a copy on the table? No.
This is recorded every morning?
It goes on. It's live on YouTube.